What does it signal when a country hosts ceasefire negotiations while simultaneously deploying military assets under a defense pact? In April 2026, Pakistan sent fighter and support aircraft to Saudi Arabia, while facilitating direct United States-Iran talks in Islamabad. The scale appears limited, with only a small number of aircraft involved, yet reports also referenced the presence of approximately 13,000 personnel. That combination of diplomacy and deployment places Pakistan in a position where its actions carry implications far beyond their immediate military value. What fundamentally changes now depends on how this dual-track approach develops. If the deployment reinforces deterrence without undermining negotiations, Pakistan could strengthen its role as both mediator and strategic partner. If it is interpreted as alignment against Iran, it could reduce trust in the negotiation process. If escalation occurs, the mutual defense agreement signed in 2025 may move from symbolic commitment to operational reality. To understand how this situation emerged, you need to examine the sequence beginning on February 28, 2026. Following the killing of Ali Khamenei in a joint United States-Israel action, Iran initiated missile and drone strikes, targeting what it described as U.S.-linked assets across Gulf states. These attacks included strikes on strategic locations, including facilities in Saudi Arabia. The escalation introduced a multi-actor conflict dynamic involving the United States, Israel, and Iran, with regional states directly exposed. Amid this environment, Pakistan positioned itself as a diplomatic intermediary. Islamabad hosted direct talks between U.S. and Iranian delegations, with senior representatives present and Pakistani officials facilitating discussions aimed at ending the conflict. This role elevated Pakistan's diplomatic profile, placing it at the center of a negotiation process involving major global and regional actors. At the same time, it required careful management of relationships with all sides. Parallel to this diplomatic role, Pakistan's security commitments to Saudi Arabia shaped its military posture. In September 2025, Shehbaz Sharif met Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh to formalize a collective defense agreement. The pact established that an attack on one country would be treated as an attack on the other, effectively codifying a long-standing strategic relationship. This agreement created binding obligations that influence Pakistan's decisions during periods of regional tension. The recent deployment of aircraft to King Abdulaziz Air Base in Saudi Arabia's eastern province represents the first visible implementation of that pact. The eastern province is strategically significant due to its proximity to key oil infrastructure and Gulf maritime routes. While the number of deployed aircraft is limited, their placement in this region carries symbolic and strategic meaning, particularly in the context of ongoing Iranian strikes. Pakistan's leadership has attempted to maintain a balance between its diplomatic and security roles. Ishaq Dar indicated that Iranian officials were informed early in the crisis that Pakistan remained bound by its obligations to Saudi Arabia. At the same time, efforts were made to secure assurances that Saudi territory would not be used as a base for attacks against Iran. This reflects a deliberate attempt to reduce escalation risks while maintaining treaty commitments. Military coordination has also been visible at senior levels. Asim Munir traveled to Riyadh in early March to discuss measures related to the defense pact and the ongoing situation. These discussions indicate that the deployment is part of a broader framework rather than an isolated action. The timing, occurring just days before the arrival of aircraft, suggests coordinated planning rather than a reactive decision. The economic dimension adds further context. Saudi Arabia hosts approximately 2.5 million Pakistani workers, whose remittances play a significant role in Pakistan's economy. Riyadh has also provided financial support and committed to an investment package valued at around $5 billion. These factors reinforce the strategic importance of the relationship, making defense cooperation closely linked to economic stability. At the same time, Pakistan's relationship with Iran remains significant due to geographic proximity and shared regional interests. Any perception of alignment against Tehran could complicate this relationship, particularly while Pakistan is acting as a mediator. This creates a constrained policy space where both diplomatic neutrality and alliance obligations must be managed simultaneously. An additional factor is how the deployment was communicated. The announcement of the aircraft and associated personnel came through Saudi authorities rather than Pakistani military media, and it received limited coverage domestically within Pakistan. This suggests a calibrated communication approach where visibility is managed differently across audiences. Internationally, the deployment signals commitment, while domestically, lower visibility may reduce political sensitivity. Now consider the first scenario. What if the deployment strengthens Pakistan's position as both mediator and security partner without provoking negative reactions? In that case, Islamabad could enhance its diplomatic standing, demonstrating an ability to manage competing relationships effectively. This outcome would reinforce Pakistan's role in regional diplomacy and potentially expand its influence in future negotiations. A second scenario presents a more challenging outcome. What if Iran interprets the deployment as a shift towards Saudi alignment and reduces its engagement in talks hosted in Islamabad? In that situation, negotiations could lose momentum, with Tehran becoming less willing to make concessions. This would weaken Pakistan's role as a neutral intermediary and could prolong the conflict. There is also a third possibility. What if the conflict escalates despite ongoing negotiations, and Pakistan faces pressure to act under the Mutual Defense Pact? In that case, the current limited deployment could expand into a more substantial military commitment. This would significantly alter Pakistan's regional posture, potentially drawing it directly into the conflict and reshaping its relations with multiple actors. The geopolitical implications extend beyond immediate participants. The Gulf region remains central to global energy flows, and instability directly affects supply chains and pricing. Pakistan's dual role illustrates how mid-level powers can influence outcomes through a combination of diplomacy and strategic signaling, even without large-scale military deployments. At a broader level, this situation reflects the evolving nature of international relations, where states increasingly combine negotiation and deterrence in parallel. The presence of a small number of aircraft, supported by a larger contingent of personnel, demonstrates how limited military actions can carry significant strategic messaging when linked to formal agreements. As this situation develops, key indicators include the progress of ceasefire negotiations, any changes in the scale of military deployments, and diplomatic responses from Iran. These factors will determine whether Pakistan can maintain its current balance or whether it will be forced to adjust its approach.